Naima walked barefoot across a vast, lush green field, drawn irresistibly towards a magnetic beauty. Just like a child let loose in a butterfly garden, chasing one after another in sheer delight. The field was adorned with countless verdant trees, some adorned with delicate flowers and entwining vines. Many trees had branches extending symmetrically in all directions, slender, elegant, and uniform, while others had their limbs stretching outward as if yearning to embrace the descending beauty of the sky or standing in silent prayer, awaiting the fulfillment of a wish. She pondered how long that tree had stood with its arms outstretched. Was it gathering its fulfillment or merely standing in eternal anticipation? With wide, astonished eyes, she observed every tree and plant, feeling as if she had stepped from the world of humans into a realm of flora, where each tree seemed to whisper its own story. Suddenly, while walking, she realized that all the plants and trees had vanished. She turned around in disbelief. Where there was once an endless grove, now lay a barren, empty field. A wave of anxiety surged within her as she abruptly woke up, reaching out to turn on the bedside lamp. A dim light filled the room. She quickly poured water from the jug into a glass and took a few sips, trying to ground herself back in reality. But mentally, she was still lost in that dream. Her mind refused to accept that it was nothing more than a vision. For days, she had been tormented by anxious thoughts. Perhaps this dream was an extension of those fears. She realized she had been sleeping on her right side, and there was still plenty of time before dawn. She gathered her hair and leaned against the headboard, lost in contemplation. Time slipped away as she tried to decipher the meaning behind the dream. Such a breathtakingly beautiful scene. Yet in the end, it was nothing but a mirage. Was this a reflection of something about to happen in her life? As she dwelled on these thoughts, the call to Fajr prayer echoed, pulling her back to the present. She performed her prayer and set an alarm before drifting back to sleep. The morning came too soon, and she barely woke up at the last alarm. Rushing to get ready for the clinic, she quickly kissed her mother goodbye. "At least have breakfast. How will you handle others' problems on an empty stomach?" her mother called out. She gulped down a glass of milkshake and hurried out. Settling into the car, she checked her phone. No new notifications, as expected. Upon arriving at the clinic, she switched into work mode. Naima was a psychologist, a profession that required her to untangle the complex knots of human emotions and minds. But dealing with psychological struggles was no simple task. People often clung to past words, behaviors, or incidents, things the other person had long forgotten, while they themselves remained trapped in the agony of overthinking. Humans should never give others the power to disrupt their inner peace with mere words. Psychological struggles are often a product of one's circumstances. If life keeps taking without giving, and there's no strong support to hold on to, one is bound to collapse from exhaustion. Lately, Naima felt like she was on an unending journey, one that had drained her to the core. At times, she feared she was on the verge of breaking. On her way back from the clinic, while waiting at a traffic signal, her eyes caught a scene that left her shaken. Daniel Ibrahim was sitting in his car, engrossed in a conversation with another woman. It took just a moment, only a single moment, for her to break. The human mind does not instantly process joy or sorrow. It takes time, and Naima Saeed, too, had taken time. Suddenly, she felt her eyes welling up, her face slightly pale. A single moment was all it took for a well-buried feeling to surface. Daniel Ibrahim was the son of Naima's eldest uncle. He had moved to London for his studies and upon completing them, had settled there permanently. Ever since childhood, she had been the apple of her uncle's eye, even more than she was of her own father. 5 years ago, her father had passed away suddenly due to a heart attack, leaving her world shattered. Since then, her uncle had taken over every responsibility of their home, as he and her father had been business partners. Naima's elder brother was married and lived in Australia with his wife. A year ago, "What are you saying, Baba? Marriage is not a game. How can you make such a big decision about my life so suddenly?" Daniel's voice was filled with frustration. "You know this is not sudden. I have always made it clear to you that I adore Naima dearly." "Baba, I am the one getting married. My opinion should matter, and I have no emotional attachment to her. How do you expect us to live together just like that?" Daniel pleaded, his hands almost folded in desperation. My son, when two kind-hearted people come together sincerely, attachment, devotion, and love naturally follow. No, Baba, this is completely wrong. I never imagined I would be forced into a marriage, something I have always despised. I pity those who are trapped in forced marriages. I have seen people around me suffer through them for years. I despise the hypocrisy of a life spent deceiving one another, without any emotional understanding or true connection. Daniel sat before his father, his tone turning from frustration to a desperate plea. So do you love someone else? Have you made a commitment to someone? His father asked, his gaze firm. No, it's not that, but I was still thinking about my future. And honestly, I don't even want to get married right now. You know very well that I am not a flexible person. Why do you want to inflict this on Naima? Because you don't even know the kind of woman you need in your life. You have set impossible standards. Son, we have reduced marriage to a mere calculation. You have no valid reason to refuse, not even one. But Baba, enough. Both of you are my children. I know you well enough. Neither of you is hypocritical, and my decision is final. You can think of me as the worst father, but you will marry her before you leave for London. After that, whether you take her with you or return later, that's a decision for you and your wife to make. With that, his father stormed out, leaving Daniel sitting in stunned silence. Daniel watched him leave, his eyes filled with helplessness. A decision that was rightfully his, one that should have been made with his happiness in mind, had been imposed upon him. Parents believe that once they force a marriage upon their children, they have freed them for life. But how free are we really? Children are not emotionally mature enough to resist when parents make a firm decision, issue a command, or resort to emotional blackmail. They have no choice but to comply. And that is the most painful part of all. For an obedient child, this was the most painful reality, especially for those who either never learned to rebel, had no one to rebel against, or simply didn't wish to defy their parents. Daniel knew he belonged to one of these categories. Without a word, he picked up his jacket and drove out of the house. He knew all too well, once his father made up his mind, there was no changing it. His mother might have intervened, but he was aware that she had been listening from the adjacent room. If she had truly wanted to support him, she would have already stepped in. But she had already had a private discussion with him about this, trying to convince him beforehand. It was all pointless. Daniel had lost. He had no choice but to agree to the marriage. Otherwise, the atmosphere at home would remain suffocating. And like many other helpless children, he loved his parents too much to cause them distress. That evening, he sat alone by the sea, lost in thought. There were so many things we think about, so many words, meaningful or meaningless, that we never say aloud. But our favorite pastime remains dwelling on the things we cannot change. Daniel indulged in this very habit, deeply immersed in his own thoughts. He had no particular issue with Naima, but he wasn't ready to marry her, at least not yet. He decided he would go through with the wedding and immediately return to London. The fast-paced life there would easily consume him, making it simple to disappear into routine. Perhaps with time, he would come to accept Naima in his life. On the other side, Naima's situation wasn't too different. She too was being mentally prepared for this marriage. But for her, accepting the idea was relatively easier. Perhaps as daughters, we are accustomed to surrendering quickly. Or maybe she simply hadn't found a better option than Daniel. The proposals she had received so far were ones she could never consider. Besides, Daniel was Uncle Ibrahim's son, which was a comforting factor. He was also undeniably handsome, someone who could easily be any girl's dream. And so both of them, albeit reluctantly, gave their consent. The nikah took place in a simple ceremony. Naima wore a soft sky blue kurta with a traditional garara. Her delicate hands were adorned with rose garlands, her makeup subtle, her jewelry minimal. She looked breathtakingly elegant, but throughout the day she kept remembering her father. Every now and then she felt an urge to cry, and eventually she did. Meanwhile, as Daniel signed the nikah papers, his heart was void of emotions, or at least that's how he chose to appear. But there was one thing they both had in common. They both silently prayed for peace and ease in their lives ahead. Perhaps fate itself had guided them to do so. After all, When he wishes to bless someone, he also teaches them how to ask for it. Whether their prayers would be answered, neither of them knew. During the wedding reception, neither of them exchanged a word. No compliments, no reassurances, no promises. After sitting briefly among the elders, both retreated to their rooms. Naima's heart was full of dreams, dreams that now felt painfully uncertain. She was emotionally vulnerable today, overwhelmed by the absence of her father. She had thought Daniel would be there to support her, at least for today. But thoughts like these often bring the most pain. Their unfulfillment impacts us far too quickly. Love and love-based marriages may not be everyone's destiny, but they are certainly everyone's desire, even if we try to deny it to ourselves. Love is a blessing, a divine gift. If one is granted it, it's pure grace. But even if it isn't, the longing for it always exists deep within every heart, to be loved, to be cherished. Daniel stayed out for the next 2 days, using his friends as an excuse. On the third day, he returned and silently placed his flight ticket on the table. "I'm leaving tomorrow morning." He added that he wouldn't be returning for at least a year. Like everyone else, Naima too found his words deeply painful. After pacing her room for quite some time, Naima finally decided that if Daniel wasn't willing to talk to her, she should take the initiative. After all, they were bound to each other now, equally and irrevocably. 3 days had passed, and it was clear to her that Daniel wasn't ready for this relationship. But regardless of the circumstances under which this decision had been made for her, she was making a decision of her own. To talk to him. Their houses were in separate portions of the same building. The upper portion had belonged to her father, while the lower one was Uncle Ibrahim's. As soon as she descended the stairs, she saw her uncle, who embraced her warmly. "Where is Daniel?" she asked hesitantly. "Please send him up to the terrace. I need to talk to him." Even as she spoke, Daniel appeared in front of her. Without another word, Naima turned and walked upstairs. It stung her pride that her husband hadn't spoken a single word to her in 3 days, and was now planning to leave without even informing her. Her heart ached. Anyone's would. But whatever the situation, her name was now tied to his, and she wanted to define her own journey, whether difficult or easy, that was left to fate. Daniel hadn't expected this. He hadn't thought Naima would come downstairs herself and ask to speak with him. Casually, he turned to his father and said, "I'll just head upstairs for a bit," as if it were a routine visit. His steps felt heavy as he climbed the terrace stairs. When he reached the top, he saw Naima standing with her back to him, leaning against the wall, her gaze turned away, like someone waiting for a traveler who may never return. He walked up behind her silently. She sensed his presence. There had always been some degree of conversation between them whenever he visited Pakistan. After all, she was his uncle's daughter. But today, words felt like strangers. He had to search for them, and yet he didn't want to speak at all. "How are you, Naima?" "Fine." A single word response, no complaints. Because before you complain about someone's behavior, you must first be important to them. Otherwise, complaints hold no weight. Silence hung between them, stretching endlessly. Perhaps one of them had too much to say, and the other had nothing at all. "My next flight is quite late, and I have a lot of work waiting for me back there. So I'm leaving tomorrow morning." His voice was calm, indifferent. "This was entirely Baba's decision. I know you want to focus on your career. Keep applying for jobs, keep yourself busy, just like you had planned. You used to talk about it all the time." That was all he had come to say. Silence again. Naima thought he might say something else, maybe something more. But instead, he turned. "I should go now. Need to finish packing. Take care of yourself. And of Chachi." He smiled, a forced, empty smile, as if everything between them was just fine. And then he left. Naima stayed on the terrace long after he was gone, lost in thought. She was a strong girl, one who had always adapted to circumstances. Her father had always raised her to be emotionally strong, perhaps because he knew she would have to walk this path alone one day. And now the journey ahead was becoming clear to her. She had to strengthen herself, give herself time, and make decisions for herself before anyone else did. So she quickly joined a clinic and immersed herself in her studies. She tried her best to avoid the thought that there was a man who had married her only to leave her behind. Their communication over the past year had been limited to brief exchanges, whenever her mother, uncle, or aunt would suddenly hand her the phone during a call. Naima talked to Danielle, and Danielle, in the most casual manner, would ask about her well-being. That was all, nothing beyond that. She had wanted to talk to him, to understand what he wanted, but she never got the chance. She didn't want to be left in limbo. Yet she was, completely disregarded, and that, for her, was the most painful part. Time had always had its own way. Whether we want to move forward or not, whether we feel stuck or not, it never stops for anyone. It keeps racing ahead, indifferent to our struggles. A whole year had passed. Danielle was returning, perhaps for some work-related matter, but this time she had heard he would be staying for a while. Her grip on the steering wheel tightened, her vision blurred. She felt like she was standing at a crossroads. If Danielle had needed time to accept this marriage, she had already given it to him, without making herself a burden, without forcing herself into his life. All he had told her was to keep herself busy. She had done that. But now it was time for a decision. She often thought about people who, once trapped in their disappointments and failures, never found their way out. They kept walking in circles, letting their despair define their entire existence. They never even started their journey towards something greater. And why? Because it takes courage. It takes vision. It takes determination to live life to its full potential, no matter the circumstances. Whatever you wish for exists within this world. You just have to search for it. No matter what happens, never let your individuality fade. Stay strong. Stay alive for yourself. She often had such empowering thoughts. But today, after suddenly seeing Danielle with another woman, her self-restraint shattered. She let a few tears escape, but she would talk. That was her resolve after every problem. She would talk. Danielle returned home as usual, greeting everyone before heading upstairs to see Naima's mother. He never really acknowledged Naima, and she knew that. When he walked into the lounge, she was lounging casually on the sofa, wearing a light pink long kurta paired with a matching chiffon dupatta and trousers. Her hair was loosely braided over one shoulder, and she was reading case studies on her laptop. It had been a whole year since her husband had last been in front of her. "Assalamu alaikum, Naima. How are you?" She didn't move. She remained in the same position, her eyes slowly traveling up from his face to his eyes. And then she just stared, perhaps searching for something, perhaps searching for her future. Half a minute passed, maybe a full minute. She didn't reply. Danielle saw the unmistakable coldness in her gaze, the simmering anger buried beneath her silence. A chill ran down his spine. When she finally looked away, she simply nodded, as if to say, "Fine." She didn't say a word. Danielle, for reasons unknown even to himself, sat down on the sofa opposite her. Silence stretched between them. "How's the clinic? How's work going?" he finally asked. Naima took her time before answering. "Fine. Anything else?" This time her anger was evident. Danielle had no response. From the kitchen, faint noises could be heard. A moment later, he got up and called for his aunt. With his usual warmth, he inquired about her health, her medicines, and her routine. Just as he always did. When Naima's mother invited him to stay for dinner, he suggested that everyone should eat together downstairs instead. And then he left. To her mother, perhaps, everything seemed normal between them. But for Naima, it was time. She didn't need to know his plans anymore. She needed to tell him hers. But no, perhaps she wouldn't be able to say it to him. Yet something had to be decided. She got ready carefully. She never liked dressing up for others, only for herself. She loved herself enough to give herself time, to care for herself. She wore a long black lawn frock with fitted sleeves and a chiffon dupatta, simple yet stunning. She accessorized lightly with delicate jewelry in her ears and around her neck. Her hair, always well cared for, was tied in a sleek ponytail. She was striking. She walked downstairs with her mother and sat with her uncle and aunt. "Danielle, you know Naima always makes time to visit us whenever she's free. And not just that, she even cooks for us," her aunt told him warmly. Their family was closely knit. Everyone shared a bond of love and care, except for him. No one knew what was in his heart, whether it even existed in his chest, or if he had left it behind in London. Her aunt seated her beside Daniel. She sat, but she felt like grabbing a plate and smashing it on his head. Maybe that would ease her anger. Danny, my son, you two should plan something. Spend some time together. Go out, get to know each other, and then let us know when you want to set the wedding date. Her uncle declared another decision. Both of them froze for a moment. Naima spoke first. I need to talk to you today. It's important. Almost everyone heard it. Yes, dear. You two should go out. Some decisions, after all, need to be made by you both. Because it was her life at stake, too. Daniel, finally realizing that he couldn't keep running, nodded. All right, let's go. It was a peaceful household, full of warmth and connection. That's why, even after a whole year, everyone still believed everything was fine. Everything was not fine. Naima had her car keys brought over. She opened the door, took the driver's seat, and gripped the steering wheel. She wanted to hold her own ground in this relationship, to give it a chance. Or maybe fate had something else in store. Daniel opened the front door and sat beside her, closing the door with a quiet click. The scent of his cologne lingered between them. The only other time they had sat this close was during their nikah. For a fleeting moment, Naima's heart skipped a beat, but she steadied herself, maintaining a blank expression, like this was just another moment, something insignificant, something she simply had to endure. The car's USB was already plugged in, and suddenly Hadika Kiani's ghazal played. Jane Isdil Kahal Kya Hoga, Terawada Agar Wafa Hoga, Janjayegi, Ar Kya Hoga. She let the song play. Finally, Daniel's voice broke the silence. Where are we going? Naima, as if she had been mute for centuries, barely parted her lips. Nowhere. Just two words. That's a pretty unique place. Nowhere. Do they serve cold coffee there, Sern? Daniel's humor, so out of place between them, irritated her more than anything. She didn't laugh. She simply took a deep breath and, without replying, stopped the car near a small outdoor cafe. It was a quiet spot with few people. Karachi had plenty of open-air food spots, and at night, the breeze made them even more inviting. She parked the car and walked toward a corner table in the dimly lit cafe. Daniel followed her inside, and as they settled, the waiter approached. Do you have cold coffee? Daniel asked. Yes, sir. It's one of our best sellers. Two, please, Naima added, as if in silent agreement. First similarity. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. She had brought him here to talk, and if she had taken the first step, then he should be the one to start the conversation. She took her time, placing her phone and car keys on the table. Then she clasped her hands together, as if composing herself. And then she finally spoke. So, Daniel Ibrahim, what's your plan about yourself? About this relationship? About me? She said each phrase with a deliberate pause, inhaling deeply afterward. Daniel looked at her, at the hollowness in her expression, the weariness in her eyes. For a moment, guilt flickered within him. Look, Naima, everything happened so suddenly. I needed time. And now, well, let's see. I'm here for a while. She was right back where she had been a year ago. She had called him up to talk back then, to ask for clarity. But he had left without a single meaningful word. There are people who leave you suspended between heaven and earth. They lack the courage to make a decision, refuse to take responsibility for the suffering they cause, and make no effort to end anyone's misery, despite being its sole reason. Naima exhaled and spoke again, her voice measured, but there was a plea hidden beneath her tone. Listen, Daniel, maybe I won't be able to give this relationship a third chance. I could just walk away, like you did. But my life is being affected by this, deeply, painfully. And if there's any way for me to fix it, I will. She looked at him, her voice steady. I need to know what you want. You can tell me openly. A year ago, I was waiting for the same answer. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, exhaling slowly. Naima, some people take time to accept changes. They picture a certain life, and then time throws something completely different at them. They get stuck. Maybe I'm stuck too. I won't mind if you choose a different path. It won't hurt me. Naima let out a quiet, almost broken laugh, staring into the distance. I see. She paused, and then, in the softest, most fragile voice, she added, but staying in such a relationship will hurt me. I'll pity myself. Daniel's gaze flickered for a second. He looked away. The cold coffee was served. Both of them distracted themselves, glancing at other people, avoiding each other's eyes. Naima looked at him again, searching for something, some assurance, some hope, some false promise at the very least. I'll try my best to think about it. Make a decision. Figure out a solution. Keep yourself busy in the meantime. He smiled, a forced, artificial smile. Why do these people who come back from abroad think that keeping busy is the solution to every problem? Yes, staying occupied was a blessing, a relief, but not the answer to everything. We'll have to tell Mama and Uncle soon. Keeping them in the dark any longer would be cruel. With that, she picked up her car keys, as if even breathing was exhausting her. She got up and walked toward the car. Daniel had already paid. He had no choice but to follow. How normal everything was for him. She felt like she might explode from frustration, like she might burst into tears in anger. But she didn't. She was stronger than that. My tears are not so worthless that I shed them for him. No, Naima, no. She started the car. Daniel opened the passenger door and got in. Thanks for the coffee. It was good, he said absent-mindedly, staring out the window. The drive home was silent, but the thought circled in her mind again and again. He never once denied the idea of separating. He never gave her any hope, which meant the entire past year, her patience, her silence, her endurance, had all been wasted, completely useless. If it all had to end, why did it even begin? She hadn't asked for any of it, but she had been the one left to deal with the wreckage. Her head ached as if it might split open. She barely made it home, parked the car, got out with cold, emotionless expressions, and walked straight upstairs, away from everyone. Some people are so complex, they never truly reveal themselves. And we, in our futile attempts to understand them, exhaust ourselves. And yet they had been married. Where was the blessing of Nika? The love, the peace, wherever it was not with her. Naima had nothing. She lay on her bed in the same clothes, lost in thought until she eventually fell asleep. In the last hours of the night, she woke up again. Cold coffee, the man who had once been her husband, but now felt like a stranger. It all came rushing back. She got up, changed into lighter clothes, and went to perform ablution. Whenever life felt unbearably heavy, whenever her world seemed to be shrouded in darkness, she would sit on the prayer mat, pouring her heart out to her Lord, pleading for his mercy. There had been so many moments in the past year when she had wanted to talk to Daniel, to share her daily life like normal couples did. She had wanted him to care, to ask about her mother, about how they had been surviving alone after her father's passing. But he never did. He had no concern. So she had turned to prayer instead, begging her Lord to pull her out of the darkness, to unravel the knots of her life, to bring light where there had been only shadows. There was one version of Naima, the one who had made up her mind on the drive home that Daniel was about to leave her, and she had to stay strong. And then there was this Naima, the one who, in the last hours of the night, was still asking her Lord for hope, for light. She had never imagined a marriage where she would feel like a burden, where she would be forced to pity herself. Laying all her fears before her Lord, she whispered, "My Lord, I do not have the strength of Ibrahim A.S., nor the deeds of your beloved servants. But I am your creation, and you are my Lord. There is no support greater than yours. No one understands me like you do. Guide me, fix my life, for I have surrendered all my decisions to you." She remained on the prayer mat for a long time, and when she finally got up, her heart felt lighter, as if a dear old friend had promised to help her, as if she had placed everything in the safest hands. She left her room, made tea, picked up her laptop, and walked to the terrace. Sinking into the comfortable chairs, she took a deep breath. Whatever happens, may everyone's hearts soften toward me. Just then she heard the sound of a car at the main gate. Daniel. He stepped out and for some reason began pacing in the lawn, deep in thought. He had a phone pressed to his ear, mostly listening, speaking very little. At some point he glanced up and saw her sitting on the terrace. A moment later, he walked inside. Some people are so complex, they never truly reveal themselves, and we, in our futile attempts to understand them, exhaust ourselves. And yet they had been married. Where was the blessing of Nika? The love, the peace? Wherever it was not with her. Naima had nothing. She lay on her bed in the same clothes, lost in thought until she eventually fell asleep. In the last hours of the night she woke up again. Cold coffee. The man who had once been her husband but now felt like a stranger. It all came rushing back. She got up, changed into lighter clothes, and went to perform ablution. Whenever life felt unbearably heavy, whenever her world seemed to be shrouded in darkness, she would sit on the prayer mat, pouring her heart out to her Lord, pleading for his mercy. There had been so many moments in the past year when she had wanted to talk to Daniel, to share her daily life like normal couples did. She had wanted him to care, to ask about her mother, about how they had been surviving alone after her father's passing. But he never did. He had no concern, so she had turned to prayer instead, begging her Lord to pull her out of the darkness, to unravel the knots of her life, to bring light where there had been only shadows. There was one version of Naima, the one who had made up her mind on the drive home that Daniel was about to leave her, and she had to stay strong. And then there was this Naima, the one who, in the last hours of the night, was still asking her Lord for hope, for light. She had never imagined a marriage where she would feel like a burden, where she would be forced to pity herself. Laying all her fears before her Lord, she whispered, "My Lord, I do not have the strength of Ibrahim A.S., nor the deeds of your beloved servants. But I am your creation, and you are my Lord. There is no support greater than yours. No one understands me like you do. Guide me, fix my life, for I have surrendered all my decisions to you." She remained on the prayer mat for a long time, and when she finally got up, her heart felt lighter, as if a dear old friend had promised to help her, as if she had placed everything in the safest hands. She left her room, made tea, picked up her laptop, and walked to the terrace. Sinking into the comfortable chairs, she took a deep breath. Whatever happens, may everyone's hearts soften toward me. Just then she heard the sound of a car at the main gate. Daniel. He stepped out and, for some reason, began pacing in the lawn, deep in thought. He had a phone pressed to his ear, mostly listening, speaking very little. At some point he glanced up and saw her sitting on the terrace. A moment later, he walked inside. It was Sunday morning. Naima woke up late. The first thing she did was head toward her mother's room. Her mother was lying in bed, watching TV. "Ah, so the Queen is finally awake. Have your royal feet graced the ground for a morning walk yet? Or do I need to drag you outside?" Naima laughed. "Oh, but it's Sunday. Just give me a break today. Don't be so hard on me." Naima stretched her arms, groaning playfully. "Oh, but when I push you a little, you stay young and energetic. Otherwise, you just lounge around like an old woman, complaining about aches and pains," her mother teased. "All right, fine. Tell me what you want for breakfast before I change my mind." Her mother pulled her into a warm hug, kissing her forehead. She knew Naima wasn't just her daughter. At times, she was the son she never had. At times, a caring partner. At times, her closest friend. Naima sacrificed everything for her mother's happiness. She was, without a doubt, an incredible daughter. "My child, I know Daniel is distant from you," her mother finally said, "but your uncle told me that he only asked for some time. Otherwise, he had always intended to marry you. Some patience never goes unrewarded, Naima. We raised him in our arms. Don't lose hope. Things will get better soon." Naima sighed, but as always, she chose to be the voice of optimism for her mother. "Mama, he's lived in London for too long. He has never lived a life he didn't choose for himself. And that is his right. I am willing to wait for fate to decide our future, but you must also prepare your heart for whatever comes." Her mother smiled, reassured by Naima's unwavering strength. She had locked away her own doubts, refusing to let them escape and trouble her mother. But now, whatever Daniel decided, whether he wanted to stay or leave, it had to be revealed to everyone. By evening, as per tradition, they all gathered in the lawn for tea. Naima loved making snacks for these evening teas. It was something she enjoyed, just like she enjoyed dressing up. The four of them, her mother, uncle, aunt, and herself, were playing Ludo, completely engrossed in the game. Daniel was nowhere to be seen. His car wasn't parked outside either. The final round was in full swing. Naima needed a single number, Connie, to win, while her uncle needed 3 more. Her mother and aunt trailed behind. All of them were so caught up in the game that they didn't even notice Danielle's car arriving. She and her uncle were practically shouting, hyping themselves up for the final move. And then, there it was. Naima rolled the dice and got Connie. She had won. After such a long time, she had beaten all of them. She laughed so hard she almost jumped from her seat, her eyes glistening with sheer joy. They were all so wrapped up in the moment that no one realized Daniel had returned and was watching them. Daniel stood by, silently observing. For the first time, he truly looked at his wife. He watched her laughing with abandon, her eyes filled with so much joy that they sparkled. And at that moment, for the first time, Daniel Ibrahim saw his wife, and he admired her. Some people, when they smile, make you want to protect that happiness forever. "Uncle, you have to make biryani now to celebrate your loss," Naima playfully teased. "Oh, wow, Aunt, look at this. Uncle is actually going to cook for us today," she added excitedly. Her aunt laughed, thrilled at the thought. Her uncle's biryani was famous in their family. Rich, flavorful, the kind of dish that everyone craved. But as soon as Naima turned and saw Daniel, her laughter faded. He was still looking at her. She quickly stood up. "Let me get another chair for you," she mumbled, as if uncomfortable letting him see her so happy. But as she moved, she accidentally bumped into a chair and almost fell. In a split second, both Daniel and her mother reached out to catch her. For the first time since their marriage, Daniel touched her. For a fraction of a second, he had held her steady. And just as quickly, Naima pulled away from his grasp. The others were too busy recounting how she had dramatically celebrated her victory. Her uncle, still laughing, announced that, yes, he would make biryani, just as promised. These were the moments that people living abroad longed for, the warmth of family, the joy of home. Daniel watched it all, quietly taking it in. "Uncle, forget about making biryani today. I'll do it." His words caught everyone by surprise. "Wow, wow, what a grand declaration," Naima chuckled, raising her eyebrows. "Let's see if you're even capable of making edible biryani," her mother teased. "Just don't break my expensive dishes while you're at it." "Oh, come on, Mama, trust me. Everything will be safe," Daniel laughed. "I actually do cook back in London, you know. Now let me prove it to all of you." "Oh, this is going to feel like Eid," Naima's mother exclaimed excitedly. "All right then, off you go. And take Naima with you to help," her uncle instructed with a chuckle. After all, love in marriage is nurtured in the kitchen. Everyone laughed at his remark. Daniel went to his room, changed into more comfortable clothes, and then called for their house help, who, despite being called Chota, was not small at all. "Go tell Naima that Uncle is calling her to the kitchen." When Naima walked in, she saw Daniel chopping onions, tomatoes, and green chilies while boiling them. For a moment, she was stunned. "Wait, wasn't Uncle supposed to cook today?" Daniel looked up. "I'm making the biryani instead, and as per his orders, you're helping me." "I can make biryani just fine on my own," he added, "but I might need your help finding the right spices." Even for this, he had to add might. Sigh. Well, like it or not, she had to stay and help. She pulled out all the necessary spices and placed them on the shelf. 4 glasses of rice should be enough. She was about to start soaking them when Daniel stopped her. No, just tell me what to do. I'll do everything myself." She shrugged and stepped aside. He worked with surprising ease, expertly preparing the masala as if cooking was second nature to him. Or maybe he was just trying to impress everyone today. His aunt walked in and, seeing them together in the kitchen, beamed with happiness. "Did your father tell you what he said before sending you here?" she teased. Daniel smirked. "Come on, you two. Strengthen your bond." We'll be waiting for the biryani." With that, she walked out, leaving a strange silence between them. Out of nowhere, Naima spoke. "Daniel, listen to me. Whatever decision you make, you will announce it yourself in front of everyone. I will not be the one to break anyone's heart." She paused, then added, "For now, let's just forget everything else." Daniel glanced at her. "You know, just a while ago, I saw someone looking really, really happy." "Why did he say that? And for whom?" She ignored it. "So tell me, what's your favorite food?" "I like all kinds of good food," she replied instinctively, "and I eat everything with great joy." Daniel chuckled. "That's very good and impressive. I love food too. Honestly, I miss Pakistani food the most when I'm away." He worked with confidence, as if he knew exactly how to balance the Pakistani spices. Naima didn't intervene. She let him take the lead. At one point, she took over grinding the masala and handed it back to him. By then, he had already boiled the rice. Finally, they layered the biryani, alternating between rice, chicken, and masala, before garnishing it with crispy fried onions. Just as Naima was about to sprinkle the onions, a bit of hot masala accidentally fell on her hand. She winced slightly. Without hesitation, Daniel grabbed her hand firmly and wiped off the masala. Firmly, because he knew she would pull away. And she did. "You don't need to act cute with these gestures." Her voice was sharp. "Just be yourself. No one's watching." Daniel smirked. "Oh, so you think I looked cute? I was just wiping your hand with a tissue." His tone was ridiculously innocent. She narrowed her eyes at him. "And how do you think you are?" she asked. He didn't have the courage to answer that. Maybe because deep down he had already begun to reflect. "Put something on your burn or it'll sting." "This won't sting," she said quietly. "There are things far more painful. Some people are so complicated. They never truly open up, and we exhaust ourselves trying to understand them." Naima had thrown that statement at Daniel. Had he understood it? She didn't know. "Do you know the difference between Karachi and Lahore's biryani?" Daniel abruptly changed the subject. "Yes, of course. People say Lahore's biryani is just pulao in disguise, while Karachi is the true home of biryani." They talked about biryani as if nothing else in their lives mattered, and then suddenly, Naima asked the question she had been holding back for so long. "Who was that girl with you on Shara-e Faisal?" She had barely spent a few minutes with him, yet she had become comfortable enough to ask. Or maybe she had just been waiting for the right moment. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to," she added. "I've made peace with every possibility. Everyone has the right to choose what makes them happy, and they also have the right to walk away from what doesn't." She looked straight into his eyes as she spoke, her voice steady but firm. Daniel exhaled. "Not everything has to be so practical and positive, Naima." And then after a pause, he added, "Some people are just looking for an excuse to leave." Naima's heart skipped a beat at hearing her name from his lips. "And those who are looking for an excuse to leave should just be allowed to go." She met his gaze without flinching. Daniel took a few moments to think before answering. "She was my colleague. We were headed to the same place, and her car broke down, so I gave her a ride." After saying this, he looked at her, almost as if waiting for her reaction, as if challenging her unspoken expectations. "See, I didn't disappoint you. She was just a colleague." Naima scoffed lightly. And?" But she didn't wait for a reply. Instead, she gathered the dishes and walked out of the kitchen without another word. Outside, everyone was eagerly waiting for the biryani. Daniel followed. "Just 5 more minutes," he announced. "And then a free meal for everyone." Laughter erupted at his words. And when the food was finally served, it was genuinely delicious. Naima ate more than usual, and everyone else loved it too. "His wife will be very lucky," she thought sarcastically. No, she had no illusions about their marriage. Daniel had never given her a reason to believe otherwise. Not to her, not to anyone, and she was not naive enough to hope for something that wasn't there. Or maybe, she just didn't want to go through the pain of false hope. She had heard that the people who reside in your heart are often the hardest to attain. And with a bond like theirs, if even one of them had taken the first step, if even a sliver of space had existed in the other's heart, then love would have been inevitable. But love is never earned through effort. Whoever is granted love receives it only as a blessing. Well, tonight has been incredible. Ludo, biryani, what a night, her uncle stretched. Your mother and I are off to bed now. And then as if in passing, he added, Danny, if you want to take your wife out for some tea, you should go. We're old now, too tired for late night outings. Naima immediately spoke before Danielle could. I have to wake up early. Good night, uncle. You should rest as well. She didn't even glance at Danielle. She simply turned and walked toward the stairs. Her mother followed. Naima changed into comfortable clothes and lay down to sleep. She had an early appointment with a patient the next morning, and soon she was fast asleep. But Danielle lay awake for a long time. Eventually, he got up and went outside to the lawn, where they had all played Ludo earlier. He leaned back on a chair, stretching his legs over another one, staring at the night sky. For the first time, he forced himself to really think. For the first time, he let himself replay every memory. His father insisting on the marriage. His frustration. I never imagined my own wedding would be a forced marriage, something I've always despised. Naima's quiet but firm defiance. I won't be hurt if you walk away. But if I stay in a marriage like this, I will pity myself. Their entire past year spent overthinking, avoiding, assuming. When he had left for London, he had been consumed by self-pity, angry at how his life had been decided for him. He hadn't wanted to get married this way. He had envisioned something entirely different for himself. And yet here he was, realizing that Naima had suffered far more than he had. She hadn't had the luxury of escaping. She had stayed back, forced to bear the weight of an unwanted relationship, forced to answer to people, forced to carry a burden she never asked for. And now, as he observed her, he saw it. Her cold detachment wasn't indifference. It was exhaustion. Somewhere along the way, Danielle had made everything infinitely more complicated. Maybe because he had never allowed himself to accept anything. Maybe because he had never given himself the chance to understand her. Maybe because he had never really let himself see her. When Danielle had first seen Naima after their nikah, she had not been unpleasant to his eyes. In fact, he had found her quite graceful. And when he was leaving for London without saying much, she had come in front of everyone and asked to speak with him. It had meant something. It had meant that the relationship mattered to her. Even then, he had liked the fact that she wanted to talk, but back then he had only wanted to avoid the conversation. He realized much later, when he was alone in London, what that moment had truly meant. He had given her no reassurance, not even a vague promise of returning. And after that, Naima never reached out again. Because she had understood. He was running away from her. Yet in front of the family, she had preserved his dignity. She had waited patiently, endured everything in silence. Daniel had once shared everything with his closest friend Zaroon, the only person who truly knew how to knock sense into him. So you went upstairs to see your aunt and Naima, and she didn't even talk to you? Zaroon had asked. Bro, I feel like cracking your skull open right now. You married a girl and then disappeared for a whole year without so much as 2 decent words. And then you had the audacity to return and just say, Hi, how are you? Zaroon stretched out the hi dramatically, mimicking him. You should be grateful she didn't smash something on your head. Daniel sighed. It's not like that. I just needed time. I wasn't ready to accept this relationship, and you know how busy I was there. Zaroon rolled his eyes. I swear, Daniel, I will take off my shoe and beat some sense into you right now. You told your dad you needed time. Fine. You told me you needed time. Fine. But you never had the guts to tell her, so she wouldn't misunderstand, so she wouldn't feel abandoned. Zaroon shook his head in exasperation. You are honestly the most useless person I've ever met. If you didn't want to get married, you could have said no. Simple. But if you did get married, you should have handled it responsibly. Even now, Danielle, think carefully. If you are completely uninterested in Naima, then let her go. Otherwise, you're being cruel, to her and to yourself. Danielle exhaled heavily. I just needed time to accept this marriage. I wasn't ready, and if I had stayed in contact with her, I would have ended up saying toxic things. I would have hurt her more. At least now we still have a basic level of respect between us. Zaroon scoffed. Wow, that is the only intelligent thing you've said so far. Then smirking, he added, but my dear friend, you don't have much time left. Do whatever makes you happy, but if you're thinking of ending this marriage, you better have solid reasons, or a strong-willed foreign girl waiting for you. He had even winked at Danielle while saying it, and now, sitting under the night sky, Danielle recalled it all. That moment when Naima had almost fallen, and he had instinctively caught her, only for her to push his hand away immediately. He had seen how tightly she held herself together whenever they sat among family, how she had told him, with quiet resignation, I won't mind if you choose a different path, but staying in a marriage like this will make me pity myself. She had prepared herself for every possible outcome. Danielle leaned back against the chair, staring blankly at the stars. He had always thought he wouldn't be able to love anyone, and if by chance he did, he would never be able to say it. How easy it was for some people to express their emotions, but for him, it had never been easy. And it never would be. When his father had forced this marriage on him, he had thought, I won't get married now. I have other dreams. But now he wasn't sure what those dreams were anymore. Love had never been a part of this equation. Danielle's life had never been complicated, until now. But he had made it complicated. Naima had given this relationship 2 chances. Both times he had failed to communicate properly. Both times he had kept himself closed off. Both times he had only run away. But now he couldn't run anymore. After staring at the sky for what felt like an eternity, he made a decision. He would try. He would try to communicate with Naima. A couple of days passed. One afternoon as he was driving, he found himself passing by Naima's clinic. Without thinking too much, he pulled over. Why not go inside and see her? She was in the middle of a session with a female patient. Danielle waited for 5 or 10 minutes before the patient finally walked out. The girl had tears in her eyes. Naima's face looked tense, exhausted. Danielle hesitated for a second. Then he stepped inside. Assalamu alaikum. I hope I'm not disturbing you? Naima looked genuinely surprised to see him. No, not at all. Please, come in. She gestured toward the chair opposite her. After a brief pause, she spoke again. If you're free, let's grab lunch. We can talk there. Danielle raised an eyebrow but nodded. Sure. They went to a nearby restaurant. Halfway through their meal, Naima received a phone call. She was discussing something about buying a house. Danielle listened for a moment, then asked, looking for a house for a friend? Naima took a sip of water before answering, her tone calm, as if she had rehearsed this in her mind several times. No, I'm looking for a small house for myself and Mama. Danielle froze. After the nikah is annulled, it'll be difficult for both me and Mama to keep living at Uncle's house. It will be hard for Uncle and Aunt, too. Her voice was composed. Mama and Baba had some savings set aside for my wedding. If you know a reliable property dealer, just let me know. She didn't look at him. It was as if she was making things easier for him. Danielle felt like the ground had shifted beneath his feet. What? What are you saying, Naima? She finally looked up. I mean, when did I ever say I was ending this marriage? Her reply was instant. And when did you ever say you wanted to keep it? Silence. For the first time, Naima's eyes held fire. She had always been composed. But now she was tired of waiting. Danielle inhaled deeply. I'm saying it now, she scoffed lightly. Oh, now? She let out a hollow laugh and leaned back. Before you walked in today, I was in a session with a couple. They've been married for a few years. They have a child together. She looked him straight in the eye. And yet the husband has never truly cared for his wife, never even liked looking at her. They've stayed together for the sake of family and social obligations. Her voice grew softer. I don't want either of us to make that mistake, Danielle. This was the first time she had spoken so openly about her insecurities. Danielle's heart clenched. Without thinking, he reached across the table and held her hand firmly. He leaned in slightly, his voice low but steady. Naima, believe me, I am under no pressure, he exhaled. I made a huge mistake. I left without communicating. I ignored you. I avoided you. I should have never done that. His grip tightened just a little. A person should never hold someone's hand unless they are sure, and I am holding yours now because I am sure. I won't make any more mistakes. Naima blinked, her throat tightening. Slowly, she withdrew her hand. Her voice was quiet, but firm. Every action can be redeemed, Danielle. She looked away, blinking rapidly. But lost time? That can never be recovered. For some reason, Danielle felt an ache in his chest. For the first time, her pain settled inside him, and for the first time, he wanted to do something about it. I want to fix this. His voice was barely above a whisper. As Danielle spoke, an image flashed in his mind. Naima's face, lit with laughter during the Ludo game, her eyes welling up with joyful tears. She had looked so alive, and now? She sat across from him, completely silent. Give me a chance to fix this, he pleaded. I'm afraid of becoming worthless. Lima took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, her voice controlled. Maybe you're only reconsidering because Uncle and Aunt love me so much. If that's the case, then for God's sake, don't make this your second biggest mistake. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. I've seen too many men choose wives based on how well they get along with their parents. And I've seen too many men leave their wives because they don't get along with their parents. Her eyes glistened. I don't want that kind of marriage, Danielle. And then finally she broke. Tears rolled down her face. Danielle instinctively moved forward to hold her, but she stood up abruptly. I'm going home. I can't sit here any longer. She turned and walked away, leaving her untouched food behind. Danielle remained frozen. He wanted to follow her, but he didn't. Because maybe, just maybe, he had already hurt her enough. If Naima hadn't spoken her fears out loud, Danielle would have never known. He had been so wrapped up in his own frustrations that he had never once stopped to wonder what she had been going through. And yet, in just a few minutes, everything that once seemed complicated had become clear. One thing was certain. He wasn't going to leave her alone. Not in this life. He had made his decision. He was going to be with her, fully, completely, honestly. Sitting in the restaurant, Danielle finally accepted the truth. He had never truly accepted their nikah. But today, in that moment, he had. He had never before considered her his wife. But today she was all he could see. He sat there for a little longer, then got up and left. He had made up his mind. He would marry her properly. He would take full responsibility for her. Seeing her cry had shaken something deep inside him. He couldn't lose her. He wouldn't. As he drove home, his thoughts overwhelmed him. Everything comes down to acceptance. Convince your heart, and the rest will follow. Nikah is fate. You don't control who you're destined to marry. But what you do after that, that's up to you. That night, he sent a WhatsApp message to Naima. Naima, I'm sorry for everything, and I mean it. He waited. She saw the message, no reply. And then a few moments later, if you're doing this for someone else's happiness, don't. Do it for yourself. Danielle exhaled, and then he sent the only words that mattered. I am incomplete. Complete me. And with that, Naima's last bit of restraint broke. She inhaled deeply, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. Her patience had not gone in vain. The next day passed without him seeing Naima. At night, he went upstairs to her floor for the first time. His aunt's face lit up when she saw him. She knew why he was there. For the first time ever, Danielle knocked on Naima's door. Naima, it's me. Danielle, can I come in? A long pause, then finally the door creaked open. Naima stood there in simple nightwear, soft, loose clothes, her hair unkempt, her eyes swollen. She had made no effort to fix herself, and yet Danielle had never seen her look more real. More Naima. He was leaning against the doorframe, his arms folded. For the first time, her husband had come to her. I just need 2 minutes, he said softly. Please. She stepped aside, letting him in. She pointed at the chair beside the bed. Sit. Danielle looked around. Her room was elegant, neatly arranged, but his eyes fell on a small framed picture on her study table. Their Nika photo. His heart clenched. He had come to talk, but as always, it took him forever to find the words. Finally, Naima broke the silence. "I'm sorry for leaving lunch like that." Her gaze was distant, fixed on his shoes. Daniel shook his head. "I just hope you'll give me a chance, and that you'll stop running from me." His voice was gentle but firm. "Stop thinking negatively. Believe me, I have never been indifferent to you or Aunt. I talk to Baba about you all the time. I was just too busy." Naima blinked. "And I've looked at our wedding photos more times than I can count." For the first time, Daniel smiled, softly, his eyes warm. "I remember. A few days before I returned, Mama called me on video, and you happened to be in the room. You were wearing a red kurta." He smirked. "I remember because you looked good in it." Naima froze, and then, against her own will, she let out a small laugh. She couldn't help it. Somewhere deep inside, she had always known, if he came to win her over, she would let him, and tonight, a few of his words had already begun to soften her heart. Naima had prayed for him. She had spent countless nights asking her Rab to not let her be worthless, to not let her love go to waste. And when you are granted the ability to pray for something, it is because he has already planned to accept it, sooner or later. If at first it had been Naima making all the effort, now Daniel was trying just as hard. And when two people start feeling for each other, happiness begins to bloom. "Talk to me." Daniel stretched his arm across the back of the sofa. Naima sat on the opposite end, her posture stiff but calm. She inhaled deeply. "I never wanted to misunderstand you, but I was lost in the contradictions of your actions. And after you returned, I left everything to Allah. I had full faith in His decision." She lowered her gaze. "I kept wondering, Neka is one of His greatest signs. Why was there no peace or blessing in mine?" A soft exhale. "But I never prayed for you, Daniel, not for you to love me on your own. I prayed to Him because hearts belong to Him, not to us." Daniel sat silently, taking in her words. Slowly, without saying a word, he gestured towards his shoulder. After a brief hesitation, Naima leaned her head against his arm and closed her eyes, as if finally their unspoken language had aligned, as if they had both been searching for this one moment of peace for a lifetime. Daniel exhaled, letting his hand run gently through her hair. "I never thought you would sit beside me one day and talk like this. And I never imagined I would want to listen forever." His voice was lighter, softer. A small smile touched Naima's lips. "And I never thought I would be leaning my head against your arm, sitting so obediently in my own room." Daniel chuckled. "Honestly, I always thought that if I ever dared to enter your room, you'd throw something at my head." They both laughed. For the first time, the weight they had carried for so long felt a little lighter. A few moments passed in silence before Naima spoke again. "The only person I ever felt this safe with was Baba. After him, I never loved anyone again." Daniel exhaled, his voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere now. I didn't know that my peace, my home, was already here, in you." He had never said so much before, never admitted so much. But tonight, something was different. He had come to accept her, to claim her completely. "Even if you try to run, I'll always have a plan B," Naima teased, straightening up. Daniel grinned. "Oh, and what's your plan B?" "I'll figure something out." She stretched, feeling more at ease than she had in a long time. She was exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally. Carrying fears, doubts, and uncertainties had drained her. And Shaitan loves to fill hearts with doubts, especially between two people bound by Nika. She had seen it in her dreams, always standing in a beautiful field, only for it to suddenly become barren. Daniel leaned forward, his expression firm. "Naima, let go of all your fears. I am not accepting you because of anyone else's happiness. I want you for myself." He met her eyes. "I choose you, not out of obligation, but out of truth." A soft sigh escaped her lips. "I'm happy you're talking to me, that you're acknowledging our relationship." Her voice was almost a whisper. "I never expected you to be perfect. Perfection is for our Rab alone. We are human. We will make mistakes, but we will forgive each other." All I ever wanted was for my presence to matter to you. Danielle let out an exaggerated sigh. If you say one more emotional thing, I swear I'll go downstairs and tell Aunt to plan our ruksati for tomorrow. Naima rolled her eyes. All right, all right. For now, you should leave. I have to wake up early. She stood by the door waiting. Danielle smirked. Just check your schedule and tell me what date you'd prefer for our wedding reception. She didn't answer. Instead, she simply looked at him for a moment, then gently closed the door. And Danielle stood outside, smiling to himself.